Good day, I'm Adrian Atkinson and this is your JIS News for Wednesday, September 27, 2023. Stronger penalties as well as more structured and defined processes are laid out in amendments to the legislation governing the Zones of Special Operation, ZOSOs. All 18 amendments made by the Joint Select Committee were approved without further changes in the House of Representatives on Tuesday. The bill, entitled An Act to Amend the Law, Reform Zones of Special Operations, Special Security and Community Development Measures Act 2017, was piloted by Minister of National Security Dr. Horace Chang. The amendments lay out the grounds on which a ZOSO can be established, extending the declaration and extension periods from 60 to 180 days. The Minister of National Security has been added to the list of persons who may declare a ZOSO, and the circumstance to end an operation has also been broadened. Meanwhile, where a curfew has been established in a zone, the bill states that a notice must be displayed in the community and at near points outside the zone to notify residents. A breach of the curfew without reasonable excuse will attract a fine of $1 million or prison term not exceeding 6 months. The time frame for persons arrested to be taken before Justice of the Peace has moved from 24 to 48 hours. With the amendments, the Joint Security Forces now have the power to make arrests outside the zone in pursuit of suspects fleeing the area. And a clause has been added to make it an offence to threaten, assault, or obstruct the Joint Security Forces from carrying out their duties. This will attract a fine of $1 million or a prison term of 1 year. Minister Chang says the legislation will enable continued social development, restoring good order, public safety within communities.
The proposed amendments are in the best interest of the people who reside within these vulnerable communities and volatile, and therefore in the best interest of the country, and reflects in many ways the strength of our democracy, as we not only had the Joint Select Committee members commenting, making suggestions and reviewing submissions, and submissions came from an extremely wide cross-section of society.
ZOSOs are now in place in 7 communities across 4 parishes: St. James, Westmoreland, Kingston and St. Andrew. Total expenditure and payments of the third supplementary estimates now stands at $1.94 trillion. The distribution is outlined in the second supplementary estimates for the current 2023-2024 financial year that was tabled by Finance Minister Dr. Nigel Clarke during yesterday's sitting of the House of Representatives. Minister Clarke says the figure is an increase of $58.2 billion over the second supplementary estimates. He says the increase will be financed by a projected increase in revenues and grants of $43.1 billion. These comprise mainly of increases in tax revenue of $35.8 billion, non-tax revenue of $6.1 billion, and grants of $1 billion.
The third supplementary estimates provide for non-debt recurrent expenditure of $719.4 billion, inclusive of below-the-line amounts, which represent an increase of $39.1 billion over the second supplementary estimates. Capital expenditure of $66.6 billion, which represents a reduction of $8.7 billion on the prior allocation for capital programs, and debt service of $308 billion, comprised of interest payments of $170 billion, which represents an increase of $14.9 billion, and amortization payments of $138 billion, representing an increase of $12.9 billion.
Minister Clarke also shared that the net increase in recurrent programs include $1.7 billion for the holding of local government elections.
$480 million to the Ministry of Economic Growth and Job Creation, of which $400 million is for social housing and $80 million to support the trucking of water by the NWC to drought-stricken areas. $420 million to the Ministry of Local Government, of which $100 million for the cleanup of town centres, $200 million for community roads, $120 million for indigent housing, and $60 million for the trucking of water. $200 million to the Ministry of Labour and Social Security for the provision of compassionate grants, $260 million to the Ministry of Agriculture and Fisheries for farm roads, $126 million to the Ministry of Culture, Gender and Sport.
$50.9 million will also be used to support the establishment of a JIS regional office in St. Thomas. Still in Parliament, on Tuesday, East Rural St. Andrew Member of Parliament Juliet Holness has been appointed Speaker of House of Representatives following the resignation of Marissa Dalrymple Philibert. Mrs. Holness, who served as Deputy House Speaker, was nominated by her peers and received the support from both sides of the aisle.
I have absolutely no doubt that your competence, your skill, your intelligence will ensure that this Parliament is conducted in an orderly and in a way that the Jamaican people can be proud.
Madam Speaker, I join with my colleague in congratulating you on the ascension to the chair of Speaker of this great House.
The Speaker of the House is supported by new Deputy Speaker, Heroy Clark, who serves as Member of Parliament for Central St. James.
I accept my responsibility with great humility, and I will always endeavor to ensure that I manage with equity, judiciously balanced, and always in keeping with the standing orders of this noble House.
And I too affirm that I will work diligently along with my colleagues on both sides to make sure that discipline and order continue to be in this House.
Meanwhile, former House Speaker Marissa Dalrymple Philibert was lauded for her contribution to the lower house.
This House would like to extend its thanks and appreciation to the outgoing Speaker, the Member of Parliament for South Trelawney, and we wish her well, but do express our appreciation for the sterling work she contributed as Speaker of the House.
In other news, government is seeking to increase Jamaica's landmass protection to close to 40% by 2030. Minister Samuda, who made the disclosure at the recent Tourism Awareness Week 2023 tree planting exercise, said this target surpasses the international goal of 30% protection by the year 2025.
So Jamaica will be well ahead of the international targets and will indeed exceed those targets, getting to about 40% by 2030. And that's something we're proud of.
The country is also on track to achieving its target of planting 3 million timber and ornamental trees by the end of the year. The National Tree Planting Initiative, which was launched in November 2019, is aimed at expanding forested areas, including public and private forests.
As at now, Jamaica has planted 2.7 million trees as a part of that target. We'll be able to complete that last 300,000 tree planting initiative.
And finally, the Maritime Authority of Jamaica MAJ Office Centre building in downtown Kingston will be illuminated blue tomorrow evening in observation of World Maritime Day. Speaking at a JIS think tank session on Tuesday, MAJ Director General Rear Admiral Peter Brady said the International Maritime Organization, IMO, has asked all member states to participate in the floodlighting event.
Just to demonstrate the critical importance of the oceans and how shipping has to play its part in keeping the oceans clean and safe.
Transport Minister Darrell Vaz and MAJ Board Chair Cora and Robertson Sylvester will address the ceremony. Other activities are planned to mark the day.
There are a series of events that take place. For instance, the Caribbean Maritime University is having an industrial seminar on World Maritime Day, 28th of September this week. And they're looking, for instance, at risks that need to be tackled in the coming years for shipping to be safe and secure. On that day too, the Maritime Authority of Jamaica is doing a number of seminars and webinars.
World Maritime Day 2023 is being observed under the theme Marpole at 50. Our commitment goes on, which notes the 50th anniversary of the International Convention for the Prevention of Pollution from Ships. And that's it for JIS News Today. I'm Adrian Atkinson. Thank you so much for watching.